Through you, Mr. Chair, it's 4 o'clock and I've confirmed that we are live streaming. You may begin your meeting.
Thank you, Holly. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an electronic hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the Town of Pelham. Everyone present and viewing at home will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. Please address your comments through the chair. This public meeting has been called to satisfy requirements of the Planning Act and Council bylaws. Notice of this meeting has been given by prepaid first-class mail to all persons listed as owners in the last revised assessment roll within 60 meters, 200 feet of the subject properties. In addition, a public notice sign has been posted on the lands and information has been provided on the town's Committee of Adjustment webpage. Agencies commenting on applications may request that certain conditions be imposed should an application be approved. Voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. The purpose of the application and relative correspondence will be heard, following which the applicant will be given the opportunity to address the application. Any person concerned with the application will then be given an opportunity to participate in the meeting. If you have pre-registered to speak during the public portion of the application, you will be brought into the Zoom meeting and will be unmuted. Please state your name and mailing address for the record. Please be advised, once you have finished speaking, you will be removed from the Zoom meeting room. If you are live streaming at home and wish to submit a comment during the application, you may do so by emailing clerks@pelham.ca. At the conclusion of the public portion of the meeting, these comments will be read into the record. If you submit comments after the public portion has been closed, your comments will not be considered. At the conclusion of the discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise of any applicable conditions. Specific wording for conditions will be determined by the committee following the public portion of this hearing. Copies of decisions will be mailed to the applicant or agent and to any other person who files a written request. If you wish to be provided a copy of the decision, please contact the Secretary Treasurer in writing as soon as possible. The Secretary Treasurer's contact information is available on the upcoming PowerPoint presentation and available on the town's website. Any person, corporation, or public body has the right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of consent to the local appeal body within 20 days of the decision for minor variances and within 20 days of the mailing of the decision for consent applications. This meeting is being conducted by Zoom webinar and is also being live streamed on the town's YouTube channel. You may wish to put your view on gallery view by clicking the top right corner from speaker view. We ask that you are mindful of background noise for the duration of the meeting. Committee members are asked to mute their microphones until you are asked to speak. Please raise your hand if you would like to speak and vote, but also by raising your hand. Please note that attendees who have registered will remain in the waiting room via telephone or electronically until their application of interest is brought to the committee. Those participating online via Zoom will be asked by the chair to raise their virtual hand when they wish to speak. On a computer, you can do this by clicking on Participants in the bottom center of the screen, and then by clicking Raise Hand. On a mobile device, you can tap Raise Hand in the bottom left corner. You will then be called upon to speak. Your microphone will be unmuted by staff. If you are participating by phone, you will be unmuted by staff when the agenda item that you have registered for is being discussed. Applicants, agents, and attendees are advised that they are free to leave the webinar once a decision has been made on the application. Today's meeting include the following people: myself, Don Cook, member Sandra Marsh, and member Brenda Stan. Assistant Secretary Treasurer Holly Wilford, will be acting as our secretary today. Director of Planning, probably it won't be. The Director of Planning and Community Development is Barb Wood. She may not be joining us. Planner Curtis Wilson, and I understand Engineering Manager Derek Young. Committee. Does any member of this panel have a pecuniary interest in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act in the applications to be considered at this hearing? Mrs. Marsh.
I have none.
Mrs. Stan.
I have none.
And I also have none. Ms. Wilford, are there any requests for withdrawal or adjournment?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, there is. Application B11/2021P with agent Mr. Stephen Kaiser is requesting an adjournment sine die in order to be able to make a slight revision and recirculate the application. We are just bringing in Mr. Kaiser now if you have any questions or if you would like to speak to the committee.
Mr. Kaiser?
Mr. Kaiser, I'm not sure if you're muted. You appear not to be, but perhaps you're not by your microphone. If you'd like to unmute yourself. You seem muted now, sir.
How's that?
Perfect. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Can you see me?
We cannot see you, but we
Steve.
can hear you.
Oh, well, I want you to see me too. Let me work on that. Where is that button?
So there should be, if you just hover, you should, there you are. We can see you now.
I hovered. Okay. Well, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, yes, I'm asking for an adjournment in regards to the application for 1419 Station Street. And I'd like to thank Ms. Wilford for drawing to my attention a few days ago that I did not check the box in regards to partial discharge of mortgage. There is indeed a mortgage on the property. So I would ask respectfully that the committee postpone this hearing till the next available date and, if possible, waive the recirculation fee.
Members of the committee? What's your pleasure? Okay.
Chair, do we need to make a motion for the adjournment? Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, we need a motion for the adjournment, and we need a motion relative to the fee.
Okay, I'll make the motion to adjourn the matter sine die and also to waive the fee. I understand that sometimes those things can be overlooked, and glad that it was found before the application went forward.
Thank you, Mrs. Marsh.
And I second that motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Stan. All in favor of allowing the adjournment of this application? All in favor? Carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We look forward to being back to the committee at the next available date.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser. Hope to see you soon. We need to go back up here. There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That does bring us to our first item, which is the 879 Foss Road. If you'd like, I can read the PowerPoint into the record.
I would wish you would read the PowerPoint instructions, and then we'll deal with minor variance application A18.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are just bringing in each of the applicants for A18, and then just give us one moment and we'll be able to share our screen. We do have a few members of their team coming and joining the meeting. You should be able to see our screen now, Mr. Chair. This is the Committee of Adjustment, Wednesday, April 7th, 2021, 4 p.m. All Town of Pelham in-person Committee of Adjustment hearings have been canceled. Instead, the town is holding all Committee of Adjustment hearings electronically via Zoom. Please note no decisions have been made prior to this public meeting. This presentation is based upon the Town of Pelham's Planning Department report and analysis. All comments received from commenting agencies and the public have been forwarded in full to the Committee of Adjustment members for their consideration. Participants are reminded, ensure your background is free from offensive or vulgar material. If inappropriate material is visible, you'll be removed from the meeting. Vulgar or offensive language will not be tolerated. If inappropriate language is used, you'll be removed from the meeting. Participant microphones and video cameras will remain off until they are called to speak. Once your comments have been heard by the committee, your microphone will be muted. Once voting on an item has taken place, participants will be removed from the meeting completely. You may resume viewing the meeting via live stream. Decorum. The Committee of Adjustment is a formal public hearing requiring decorum, meaning all comments are to be made through the chair. If you have pre-registered to speak, you will be given an opportunity to address the committee at the public portion of the meeting. If you are live streaming and wish to submit a comment live, please email clerks@pelham.ca. Please note, comments must be received during the public portion of the meeting, otherwise they will not be considered. Disrespectful comments will not be tolerated. Cheering, booing, or hissing from the gallery will not be tolerated. Please note, if decorum is lost, the meeting may be recessed and persons asked to leave. Public portion of the meeting. To allow for an efficient meeting, each member of the public will be given an opportunity to speak to the committee during the public portion of the meeting. Please note, after all members of the public have been given the opportunity to speak, the applicant or agent will have the opportunity to address the public comments or concerns at one time. Application for minor variance, file A18/2021P-897 Foss Road, excerpts from Planning Report. The subject land is located on the south side of Canberra Road, lying east of Victoria Avenue, known locally as 879 Foss Road in the town of Pelham. The minor variance application requests relief from Section 7.3E, minimum rear yard, seeking 11.5 meters, whereas 15 meters is required. Section 7.3GI, supplementary setback distance, seeking a 36-meter distance from an adjacent dwelling, whereas 45 meters is required. To date, the following comments have been received. The MPCA, no objections. Niagara Region, no objection, as provincial and regional matters will be addressed through concurrent site plan control application. Building Department, building permits are required. Public Works, see conditions. Public comments. Several members of the public commented. Comments were received at the time of writing this report, all of which offered their support for the proposed greenhouse extension at 879 Foss Road. Is the variance minor in nature? The reduction of the setbacks to the east are minor overall because the greenhouse expansion is relatively benign in nature. The proposed building mass and orientation should not adversely impact drainage, subject to conditions of the site plan approval. Further, the greenhouse operation relies on natural sunlight for plant growth as opposed to artificial lighting, which can be a source of light pollution. The existing eastern driveway is reserved for emergency access, while the existing western driveway provides continued domestic and commercial access. No objections have been received from the neighborhood or the nearest dwelling at the time. Planning staff are of the opinion the zoning requests are minor in nature. Is the variance desirable for the development or use of the land? The reduction of the eastern setbacks are desirable because it will allow for improved use of the existing agricultural parcel, of which the eastern half has not been actively cultivated in the last 10 years. And the easterly greenhouse expansion will help preserve the balance of the land which continues to be farmed. Allowing the proposed zoning variance will help avoid removal of existing cultivated farm land, avoid impact of regulated tributary which supports the Coyote Creek watershed and helps support the local agricultural economy. Does the minor variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? The requested variance maintains the general purpose of the intent of the official plan because it supports the existing agricultural greenhouse operation and its future economic growth. The rural community and adjacent Fenwick Village character will be maintained. The greenhouse use is permitted and no adverse impacts are anticipated with regards to water quality, hydrological, light, odor, pollution, and storm water runoff. The proposed expansion satisfies the local official plan policies as it currently undergoes the required site plan approval agreement process and meets the exemption criteria from council approval for a zoning bylaw amendment. Does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? The variance maintains the general intent of the zoning bylaw because the requested setback reductions still leave adequate space for passage, navigate, drainage, and spatial separation between adjacent land uses. Planning staff are of the opinion the proposal applies current planning and development principles, dealing with appropriate agricultural development, and making efficient use of existing agricultural land use which was not being productively cultivated. The proposed variance should not negatively impact the surrounding land uses with regards to land use incompatibility, odor, and stormwater runoff. In planning staff's opinion, the application is consistent with the provincial policy statements and conforms to provincial, regional, and local plans. Planning staff recommend that application number A18/2021P be approved subject to the following condition: that the applicant submit for approval a scoped lot grading and drainage plan demonstrating that storm runoff does not negatively impact nor rely upon neighboring properties to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works or designate. If you wish to receive a copy of the notice of decision, please contact the Secretary Treasurer in writing as soon as possible. Nancy Pizzato, Secretary Treasurer, Committee of Adjustment, 20 Pelham Town Square, P.O. Box 400, Fonthill, Ontario, LOS 1E0, NJ Pizzato at pelham.ca. This contact information can also be found on the Town of Pelham's website. Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. We do have the applicant and his team within the meeting, and they certainly can go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Wilford. Where are we here? I'm looking to the applicant. Is there anything you wish to add to the?
Hello. Yes, good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Heather Sewell, and I'm a planner with NPG Planning Solutions. And I'm joined today by Ria Davis of NPG, as well as Jan Van Zanten, owner of the subject lands and Van Zanten Greenhouses, and Hugh Fraser, a consultant who works in agriculture and has for well over 40 years. So I've reviewed the staff report that's before you, and I am in agreement with staff's recommendation. We have prepared a presentation if the committee would like to see it. I know that we just went through a pretty comprehensive one, but we have prepared one if you would like. Otherwise, we are available to answer any questions you may have on behalf of the application and the greenhouse expansion. And thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. If you wish to have your report put into the meeting record, please proceed.
Thank you. So Ria, our junior planner, will do the presentation.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are here to present the proposed minor variance application that will facilitate a greenhouse expansion. The subject land is located northeast of the Forest Street and Forest Road intersection and is approximately 6.16 hectares in lot area. It has a frontage of approximately 151 meters along Forest Street and 408 meters along Forest Road. The property contains an operational greenhouse facility and a one-story dwelling unit currently accessed via Forest Road. There is an irrigation pond located along the north property line, and the remainder of the land is used as an apple orchard and for other plantings. There is an NPCA regulated watercourse passing along the west of the existing building. The property is designated specialty agricultural in the town's official plan and is zoned as agricultural in the town's zoning bylaw. The surrounding uses are also agricultural in nature with existing greenhouse operations in the area. The property is adjacent to lands designated Environmental Protection 2 zone to the north and is close to the settlement area of Fenwick. To keep up with the growing business demand, Van Zanten Greenhouses are proposing to remove the freestanding greenhouse on the east side of the property and expand the main greenhouse building. The location of the expansion is a logical and effective use of the area as it minimizes the impact on farmland, the surrounding environmental features, and will make the existing facility more efficient. The expansion will have a building footprint of approximately 3,060 square meters, which will increase the total coverage of the site to approximately 20%. Access to the facility will be from the existing driveway on Foss Road. The driveway at the east end of the property is intended for emergency vehicles only. There is a loading area located at the southwest corner of the main facility. The buildings are currently serviced by an on-site pond and a septic tank for their water, irrigation, and sanitation purposes. The proposed expansion will make use of the existing services for its needs. Variances are requested from the parent zone for the rear yard and supplementary distance setbacks to facilitate the proposed expansion. We believe the requested variances are minor in nature because the proposed addition will not cause any significant impacts on the residents at 841 Foss Road, the surrounding environmental features, or the on-site water course. The existing building and the proposed expansion will utilize roof vents to ventilate the building and natural lighting for growing the plants. The facility will not have any night lighting. This image is taken from Foss Road and shows the adjacent dwelling with respect to the eastern driveway. The existing trees provide visual screening to the resident. A site plan application process is currently underway to further address matters such as additional landscaping, grading, traffic, and lighting. In summary, the proposed minor variance is appropriate for expansion of the greenhouse business. The proposed expansion is an opportunity to increase economic activity and is encouraged by town and regional policies in support of economic development. The proposed development is desirable for the area, promotes efficient utilization of land resources, and is compatible with adjacent land uses. The proposed addition is not anticipated to have any significant impact on the surrounding natural heritage and on-site hydrological features. The operation will depend on the existing private systems for its servicing needs and will not require municipal servicing. Lastly, the proposal is consistent with the 2020 PPS and complies with the Bloomberg Plan, Niagara Regional Official Plan, and the Town of Pelham Official Plan. This concludes our presentation. Heather, Ram, me, and I are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Davis, thank you for your presentation. Ms. Wilford, have there been any members of the public pre-registered to speak on this application?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, there have been no pre-registered members of the public registered to speak on this application. I will just check our clerks at pelham.ca email address to see if we received any emails. One moment. Mr. Chair, I can confirm that it is 4:22 p.m. and we've received no emails. Therefore, if you would like, you can close the public portion of the meeting and move into committee debate.
Thank you, Ms. Wilford. I would like a motion to move from the public portion of the meeting to the private, to our discussion. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Mrs. Marsh moves that we close the public portion.
I second that motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Stan. All in favor of closing the public portion of the meeting? Carried. Members, do you have any questions you wish to ask of the applicant or members of staff regarding this application?
I have no questions.
Certainly, Mrs. Stan.
I have no questions.
Questions?
No.
Mrs. Marsh?
I also have no questions on this
I
application.
only have one question, and I'm having difficulty. I noticed on page 8 of the agenda, page 8 is the comments from Mr. Young. And my question is, what is a scoped lot grading and drainage plan? I noticed that also came up in the conditions. Mr. Young, are you available?
For you, Mr. Chair. Instead of, when we request a drainage and grading plan for the lot, it normally involves the entire lot. And due to the size of the lot, the cost of the survey would be quite high. So when we ask for a scope survey, scope grading and drainage plan, it's only applicable to the areas that are being disturbed as part of the construction. So it's only around the end of the greenhouse area and the areas that are being disturbed, not the entire lot.
In this regard, I noticed that when I on my tour looking at the property just recently within the last couple of days, I understand it was the original greenhouse, which seems relatively new, and the house that is on the property. Was there a drainage plan done for them as part of the building permit process for the existing structures?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not aware of that. I think that may have been before my time. That would be a question for the building department if it was submitted, or the planning department as part of the site plan application.
So this current, now maybe I better talk to the planning department. Mr. Thompson, are you available?
Through the chair, yep.
Mr. Thompson, in my review of the property and my drive-by within the last couple of days, I noticed that the greenhouse, the current greenhouse, is relatively new. Was that greenhouse constructed under a site plan in the town of Pelham, along with the, apparently, it looks like also a new house? What I'm worried about is drainage, as usual. I understand that tributary of Coil Creek runs through the property, and I recognize that that is one thing. What I'm also wondering is there a overall lot grading and drainage plan for this particular property?
Through the chair, that greenhouse would not have gone through site plan approval because the town council only recently amended the site plan control bylaw just a couple years ago. So this is the first greenhouse development on this property that is bound by the new site plan control trigger. I would highly doubt that there was a grading plan submitted with that dwelling, and that's just on the basis of anytime we have single detached dwellings being constructed, our building department tends not to, or in conjunction with the engineering department, and maybe Mr. Young can correct me if I'm wrong, but if the property is well over a couple acres in size, it's usually waived. With regards to the tributary on the site, the Conservation Authority didn't have any objecting comments or special conditions with respect to the addition, given its location.
I'm not worried about, I'm glad to see that Coil Creek was at least going to be properly maintained by the owners. But what I am worried about is the overall drainage of the property. In my opinion, there should be an overall drainage plan of the entire property. In that vein, I would ask that the word scope to be removed from the condition.
Through you, Mr. Chair, so you would like them to survey the entire site and provide confirmation that the drainage drains to Coil Creek?
It's proper, but also the drainage to Foss Road, the ditches on Foss Road.
Okay, so we can remove the scope part of it. It's not an issue. We were just trying to be conservative to the applicant's cost.
Well, I'm thinking at some time in the future, it'd be great to have a lot drainage plan of this entire property, particularly the frontage on Foss Road, such that when Foss Road is rebuilt, the engineering department or whoever ends up designing Foss Road at least have a good beginning point as far as between Far Road and quite a few meters to the east. Actually, basically to the western limits of registered plan 59M 352. Anyway, that's my only.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can remove the scope should you so wish to change it. We think that there is sufficient drainage on the site currently that drains it. But if you have concerns, you can, I'm assuming, put a motion in place to remove the word scope.
Thank you. Not only that, with regard to my tour, I noticed that the the trees in the front on the frontage of the property, just north of Foss Road, they were also being removed. I imagine in that removal, the sign was removed. I did find a notice sign on Far Road, so yes, there was a sign. I also noticed that the pad for the future greenhouses, the 3,000, has pretty well been leveled and graded, and from that point of view, seeing the increase in area that it is going under glass, and the proximity, at least to the what would be the easterly property line, I would be recommending that an overall lot grading and drainage plan be prepared. Basically, it could be as constructed for what is currently there, but at least becomes a lot grading plan, basically for the addition and the impact on the north-south ditch along the easterly property line. With that being said, are we in a position to recommend? Yes, Mr.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. One other point. The driveway at the easterly end of the property where the new building is going to go was not installed by town staff. We installed one to the west.
There should actually be a permit required to make sure that that culvert that is in there is actually is to grade and will not interrupt drainage on Foss Road. With that being said, members of the committee, are we in a position to render decision? And in that regard, are we in agreement with maybe a wording change with the condition, and also requesting that the applicant apply and receive a driveway entrance permit from the town of Pelham? And
through the chair, maybe the applicants might be given a chance to respond to the possible amended condition before it's voted on.
Okay. Representative, would the owner wish to speak to the conditions that have been raised?
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just wanted to get some more information so that I understand, because this is the first that I'm hearing about this also. Through you, Chair, may I ask Derek, the implications of this as-built construction grading plan, would that mean that the surveyor and the grades would go out and that it would have to be a certified engineer that completed the drainage plan for the entire site? I'm just trying to understand what the ask is.
So, through you, Mr. Chair, my understanding is they're removing the word scoped. So the survey required would be by a professional engineer or a registered land surveyor in Ontario, with a stamp on it.
Because as it stands now, as built or as constructed, there is drainage that is taking place on site without the expansion. So we would simply be documenting that existing condition. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes. So basically, the survey would encompass the entire site. It looks like you had one done prior to construction, so now you would have to update it to provide an as-built following construction.
And in your experience, is this take a significant amount of time to complete? Because I know that we are already on quite a time constraint with the proposal itself.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, the survey happens following construction. So it doesn't stop you getting a permit. It doesn't stop you starting the construction and proceeding with it. The survey happens after construction is built and it's complete. So the time frame for that is following construction and your permitting and all that kind of stuff.
But my understanding is that the building department, in order to issue a building permit, will need to have this condition cleared prior to issuing the building permit. So how would that work?
Well, if they're removing off the scope, we can change the requirement to an as-built following construction, if that's what the chair would like.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I may. the applicant's agent is correct in the fact that the conditions do indicate that prior to building permit that the drainage plan would be required. The reason that we do it that way here is to ensure that we have something tied to making sure that that drainage plan would be done. Because of course, when a minor variance has been approved, it does run with the lands, and we need a way to ensure that the conditions are met. And the way that we do that is by tying it to the building permit, opposed to, for an example, a consent in which you receive a provisional consent. You have 1 year to fulfill those. It's a little bit different with minor variance. I just wanted to give that explanation into the record for the committee.
Through you, Chair, I don't think that we're adverse to doing it. It's simply that we want to ensure that we will still be able to construct.
Okay, I have a suggestion. I understand that the proposed greenhouse, and Mr. Thompson, you may wish to correct me if I'm in error on this. The addition is, will be under site plan control. Is that correct? Mr. Thompson?
Sorry, I didn't know if I was on your screen there. Yes, that's correct. It's being reviewed concurrently right now.
Okay. The site plan agreement between the town of Pelham and the owners, could it mean that a as-built lot grading plan be included as part of the site plan approval? Or has the site plan approval already been granted?
Through the chair, the site plan agreement has not been entered into yet. So it is possible that there be a clause in the site plan agreement that in order to satisfy all of the obligations of the agreement and release any securities, if any are required, that an as-built overall operating and drainage plan is required. I would hesitate to recommend including the words as-built on the condition of this variance. As the deputy clerk pointed out, it's not really possible because the condition has to be able to be fulfilled prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Okay. In that regard, looking at the sketch that's currently in front of me with the application, the sketch was prepared by Mr. Chambers and Associates. He is an OLS. The drawing has a number of contour lines on it. It just does not have elevations along the property lines. I don't anticipate that a lot of work is going to be necessary, but in order for this to proceed, maybe we should let the entire drainage issue be solved as part of the site plan approval. Forgetting about the scoped drainage plan.
Through you, Mr. Chair, my apologies for interrupting you. Certainly, it might be possible that a condition would be put into the site plan agreement. That certainly could happen down the road. However, I'm not sure that this committee could do anything to ensure that that would happen. I'm not sure that the Committee of Adjustment would have that authority. Perhaps Mr. Thompson would be able to speak further on that, or even Mr. Young. But I'm not sure that the committee can guarantee that that would be a condition placed on a site plan.
I don't think you could. What I'm saying, what my problem is, I support the application. I support the granting of the variances. I have no difficulty supporting the granting of the variances. My problem is when I see expansions and the change of property usage, which is going to concentrate drainage problems that may or may not currently exist. I don't know. I looked at the ditches. The ditches need to be cleaned out. The culvert is there, no problem. I'm trying to make sure that the town is protected or has some knowledge of where the water on this property is going. Coil Creek, yes, Coil Creek drain, but more or less, it's also, is it the drainage going to, the change in lot grading, is it going to affect the property owners to the east? or the north. To the south is the town's property, so that's not an issue. All I wanted, and I'm trying to understand scoped drainage plan. I don't like, personally, I'd like to see drainage plans cover the entire property, not just a portion of the property. That is my problem. What I'm suggesting, and I hope maybe Mr. Thompson and the owner can decide as part of the development agreement between the town and the owner that an overall drainage plan be included as that. I realize that the Committee of Adjustment cannot impose that type of condition. It is beyond our authority. The driveway entrance one, yes, I can see that the Committee of Adjustment has the authority to that. And because you are in a time constraint relative to the building of the greenhouses, I really don't want to hold you up, but I'd like an assurance from someone, whether it be town staff or the owner, that he will prepare an overall lot drainage plan for this property. That's
through you, Mr. Chair. With regards to the scope, why don't we change it so that the plan that was submitted with the application gets updated to include directional flow for the stormwater runoff from the site? That way, they've already done the survey, they have the elevations, they can show directions on the plan as to where the stormwater runoff is going to be directed.
And that would be what I'm also worried about. It needs to have, you and the engineering department have to check that plan and make sure it satisfies the requirements of the town. Through
you, Mr. Chair, but that would alleviate the condition that we put forward, because we then know where the drainage is going. Once we receive the as-built following construction, we would then be able to do a comparison against what's there now and what's going to be there once it's constructed.
That would make me exceedingly happy. It gives you something to work with in the future.
So through you, Mr. Chair, that could be the scope of the survey then.
That could be the scope of the survey. You're agreeable to that, Mr. Young?
I am, if that would make you happy.
It's not me that I'm trying to make, I'm not the one, I'm trying to give you something. You're the one that's got to be happy, not me. I'm just throwing it out to you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that would remove the issue of the drainage or concerns you have regarding the drainage.
And I would assume, because you requested that condition, it would solve your problem also, sir.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Thank you. Okay, now, committee, are we ready to render a decision on this application? Mrs. Marsh, Mrs. Stan?
Chair,
Marsh.
I'm ready to make a motion. I just want to be clear on, are we still going to need a condition regarding the drainage? Or is it totally going to fall to the site plan?
I think what we're going to do is we're going to, prior to the issuance of a building permit, drainage plan be prepared, be forwarded to for approval of the Director of Public Works and Engineering.
Director? Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'm prepared
Mr.
to
Young, you
make a motion.
You can meet, I think that we definitely have to be concerned with what you consider scope, but I'm saying I think there should be at least how do you put it? A preliminary, can we call it a preliminary drainage plan? Let's call it a preliminary drainage plan be submitted by the applicant for the approval of the Director of Public Works and Engineering.
Sorry, can we change the preliminary to an existing?
Yes.
Can we change it to an existing, because then it's currently what is there,
Yes.
and the as-built will be what it will be in the future.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Young.
Thank you. Just for clarity for the record, my apologies for interrupting again, Mr. Chair. The conditions would be prior to the building permits that a existing drainage plan be submitted to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works or designate, and also that the applicant apply and receive a driveway entrance permit. Is this correct?
That is correct. That would be for the easterly driveway.
Thank you. Easterly driveway. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, I can see that. Okay. Do we have a seconder? No, hold a second. First of all, we're granting the variance, right, Mrs. Marsh? And
Correct. So I'd like to make a motion on file A18 2021P, the application made for minor variance for the minimum rear yard of 11.5 meters and supplementary setback of 36 meters be granted for the following reasons. The variance is minor in nature as the greenhouse expansion is minor in nature. The intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained. The intent of the official plan is maintained. The proposal is desirable for the land as it allows for improved use of the agricultural land. No objections were received from commenting agencies or abutting property owners. The application is granted without prejudice to any other application in the town of Pelham, and the Committee of Adjustment considered the written and oral comments and agrees with the minor variance report analysis and recommendation that the application meets the Planning Act test for minor variance. The following conditions: that building permits be obtained and that an existing drainage plan be submitted to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works or designate, and that the applicant apply and receive a culvert permit for the emergency access driveway at the easterly boundary of the property.
thank you. Do we have a seconder?
I second that motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Stan. All in favor of granting the variance application A18 2021? All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. The next application is going to be file B12, 13, and 14. Members of the committee, I'm suggesting that we look at files B12, 13, and 14 concurrently. Basically, they're almost basically boundary adjustments, but anyway. Are we in favor of looking at the three applications, B12, 13, and 14 concurrently? Mrs. Blair. Mrs. Stan, yes?
Yes, yes.
We're all for it. We're going to, Madam Secretary, we're going to look at the three applications concurrently. Could you please bring us?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, just give us one moment.
Of the planning report on these applications.
Yes, we're just sharing our screen now, and we have compiled the PowerPoint to hear the applications concurrently. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is applications for consent for files B12/2021P, 87 Port Robinson Road, file B13/2021P, 89 Port Robinson Road, file B14/2021P, 91 Port Robinson Road. Application for consent. The subject parcels being Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3 on the north side of Port Robinson Road, lying east of Station Street, and are known locally as 87, 89, and 81 Port Robinson Road in the town of Pelham. Applications are made for consent to partial discharge of mortgage and to convey. For B12/2021P, it's 432.7 meters square of land, being Part 1, for one unit of a 3-unit street townhouse block currently under construction. B13/2021P is for 296 meters square of land, Part 2, for one unit of a 3-unit townhouse block currently under construction. B14/2021P 426.3 meters square of land, Part 3, for one unit of a 3-unit street townhouse block currently under construction. Part 4, being 1,285.4 meters square of land, is to be retained for future residential development. To date, the following comments have been received. For the NPCA, given the low hydrological and ecological functions of the watercourse, NPCA staff have no objection to the proposed application. Niagara Region, no provincial or regional interests. Bell Canada, no concerns. Building Department, building permits were issued for the dwellings under construction. Public Works Department, see conditions. The applicant is aware that the official plan policy intent relies on deferring to and leveraging the intent of the 2016 site-specific zoning to culminate what is currently desired as a rear-loaded built form. In planning staff's opinion, the application is otherwise consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to the provincial, regional, and local plans. Planning staff recommend that applications B12/2021P, B13/2021P, and B14/2021P be approved subject to the following conditions. For the applications, the applicant submit a drawing confirming that no existing utilities cross the proposed lot line. Should any servicings cross that line, the applicant will be responsible for costs associated with relocation and/or removal. Provide the Secretary Treasurer with the registrable legal description of the subject parcel together with a copy of the deposited reference plan, if applicable, for the use of the issuance of the certificate of consent. Provide the final certification fee of $3.99 for each application, payable to the Treasurer, Town of Pelham, be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer. All costs associated with fulfilling the conditions of consent shall be borne by the applicant. And that for file B12/2021P, that the application for consent file B12/2021P receive final certification of the Secretary Treasurer concurrently with applications B13/2021P and B14/2021P. For B13/2021P, that the application for consent for file B13/2021P receive final certification of the Secretary Treasurer concurrently with applications B12/2021P and B14/2021P. B14/2021P, that application for consent file B14/2021P receive final certification of the Secretary Treasurer concurrent with applications B12 and B13/2021P. If you wish to receive a copy of the notice of decision, please contact the Secretary Treasurer in writing as soon as possible. It's Nancy Bizzato, Secretary Treasurer, Committee of Adjustment, 20 Pelham Town Square, P.O. Box 400, Fonthill, Ontario, LOS 1E0, and J. Bizzato at pelham.ca. This contact information can also be found at the Town of Pelham's website. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do have the applicant, which is Ms. Jennifer Vita. She's in the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wilford. Ms. Vita, do you wish to speak to the committee on these applications?
Good afternoon. Yes, I do have a very brief presentation, if you don't mind.
Certainly. Please proceed.
Okay. So good afternoon, committee members, staff members, and members of the public, if there are any. My name is Jennifer Vita, and I'm here on behalf of Buffalino and Hummel, Inc. with regards to their applications for consent for the refuge at 87, 89, and 91 Port Robinson Road. The subject lands are located on the north side of Port Robinson Road between Station Street and Rice Road. The subject lands form part of the East Fonthill Secondary Plan area and are zoned to permit 6 street townhouse dwellings. This is a phased development that consists of 2 blocks of townhouses with 3 units in each. This plan shows the 2 phases and the layout of the ultimate development. The first phase of townhouses is currently under construction with an estimated completion date of August 2021. The units are freehold in nature, which is the purpose for the consent applications. The consents will facilitate the conveyance of each of the 3 units independently for the future homeowners. This is the architectural rendering illustrating the contemporary character of the townhouses. Phase 1 includes 1 2-story unit in the middle and bungalows on each end. The architectural finishes include high quality materials including stone and wood, contributing to an attractive streetscape along Port Robinson Road. The 3 consent applications before you this evening will facilitate the conveyance of the units to individual homeowners once construction is complete. Once phase 1 is sold out, the second block will proceed with construction, and applications for consent will be submitted for those units in the future. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vita. With that, Ms. Wilford, have we received any pre-registered petitions wishing to speak on these applications?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are no pre-registered members of the public, but I will check the clerks at pelham.ca email address. Mr. Chair, I can confirm that it is 4:54 p.m. and we've received no emails. Therefore, you may close the public portion of the meeting and move into the committee input.
Thank you, Ms. Wilford. Could I have a motion from the members of the committee to close the public portion of the meeting? Need a mover and a seconder. Mrs. Marsh moves.
I second.
Mrs. Stan second. All in favor of closing the public portion of the meeting? All in favor? Carried. Members, do you have any questions you wish to ask of the applicant?
Chair?
Mrs. Marsh.
Through the chair, I have just a simple question for the applicant. Since the overall intention is to ultimately have 2 3-unit townhouse constructed, why is it that we're only dealing with the first kind of phase 1 at this time, and not phase 2 at the second time? Like, is there a reason that it's not all brought forward at the same time?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. We initially wanted to do it that way just for efficiency purposes. Unfortunately, there was a zoning issue that we weren't able to address, so we had to do the consents in a 2-stage process.
Thank you.
Mrs. Marsh.
Thank you. I was wondering, through the chair, I was just wondering why. That just seemed odd to me if that was the overall intent, so I was just curious as to why it was done that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the committee? Mrs. Stan.
I have no questions.
I only have one question, and it relates to something I noticed in the information received with the application. On a drawing prepared by Upper Canada Consultants, it shows that there's an existing culvert running along I would think it's probably close to the north property line. Mr. Young, maybe I should ask you, this culvert, is it communal? Is it part of the overall drainage system of what I believe may be a municipal drain?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, it is not a municipal drain. It's an existing drainage ditch that eventually outlets down towards Port Robinson Road and Rice. It heads in that direction. This is an existing drainage ditch. It's a natural drainage ditch, so it needs to be maintained by the property owners.
It's my understanding, noting I've known previous owners along that particular portion of Port Robinson Road, and I believe that the drain what you're actually talking about, this ditch, is actually a tributary to the Singer's Corners drain. Now, the previous property owner lived very close to Station Street. His property flooded regularly every spring, and he remembers actually paying a benefit liability to the reconstruction of the Singer's Corners drain. If this is part of a drain, was this particular culvert, did it receive the approval or design approval of a drainage engineer?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that would need to go to the drainage superintendent. I am of the impression it's a tributary to the municipal drain, but it is not the municipal drain. So the area would have been assessed based on the drainage area to the municipal drain.
Okay, so basically this owner was right. He did pay a benefit liability.
He would, and all the through you, Mr. Chair, all the property owners on Port Robinson did pay a benefit towards it. However, the drain is not maintained by the town. The tributary is not maintained by the town. So therefore, we can't comment on something we don't maintain. We can't have an easement over something we don't maintain. So therefore, it becomes then a property dispute between neighbors if it gets blocked or there's a flooding occurrence upstream. It's no different to having a swell that runs down through 3 back gardens and somebody decides that one day they're going to put a big shed in their back garden and block the drain. They have a right to drain to their outlet. Should the neighbor block that outlet, then it is a legal dispute between neighboring properties.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Young. It's one of those things that when I see something like this, it worries me because somehow I believe the town is going to get brought into it and there's going to be legal fees and somebody's going to end up paying. Because what? The town is always considered the one with the deep pockets when it comes to the court of law. Anyway, the only other thing, and maybe Mr. Thompson, I'm really having difficulty. I noticed in your report, you had to give driveway entrance permits to this particular property, even though the majority of properties we've seen in East Font Hill are looking at rear access. But I understand that the way this particular property is being developed, that driveway entrance permits are going to be granted to the 3 townhouses. And I hope that these people realize that Port Robinson Road in the future is going to be a very busy little road. That being said, representatives, do you have any other comments you wish to make to the committee before we render a decision? Ms. Vida?
No.
Well, it looks like we're ready to go. Committee, are we ready to render a decision on the 3 conveyance applications? Which I've lost my sheet, of course, because I'm B12, B13, and B14, 2021P. Mrs. Marsh.
Through the chair, I'm prepared to make a motion. File B12, B13, B14/2020P, 87 to 91 Port Robinson Road in Pelham for the application for consent to convey parts 1, 2, and 3, and for partial discharges of parts 1, 2, and 3 on the draft plan is granted for the following reasons. Is granted with the following conditions. To the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works to confirm that no utilities cross the property line. To the satisfaction of the Secretary Treasurer that files B12, 2021P, B13, 2021P, and B14, 2021P receive concurrent certification to provide the Secretary Treasurer with a registerable legal description and a copy of the deposited reference plan, and that the final certification fee of $3.99 be provided for each application. The decision is based on the following reasons. The application conforms to and complies with the town official plan, the regional policy plan, and provincial policy statement, and the town zoning bylaw. The decision is rendered having regards to section 5124 and 5125 of the Planning Act. No objections were received, and the committee considered all written and oral submissions and finds that, subject to the conditions, this application meets Planning Act criteria, is consistent with and complies with provincial, regional, and town planning policy.
Thank you, Mrs. Marsh. I need a seconder.
I second.
Mrs. Stan seconds. All in favor of granting the applications B12, 13, and 14, 2021P, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Now we'll move on with the remainder part of the agenda. We have no minutes for approval. One of the items we have, we know that Mrs. Bizzato is currently our Secretary Treasurer, and she is retiring in the very near future. So we need to have a motion brought forward to appoint a new Secretary Treasurer. In that regard, I would suggest that we appoint Mrs. Holly Wilford as our new Secretary Treasurer of the Town of Pelham Committee of Adjustment. I will move that as a motion. And can I have a second, or do we want to have a discussion first?
Through the chair, I'll second that motion.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. I would just ask that my appointment to Secretary Treasurer be effective for April 19th, and that the committee would also appoint Ms. Nancy Bizzato as the Assistant Secretary Treasurer. That would also be effective as of April 19th.
That's a very friendly amendment, and I would be happy to have that added to the motion. Is there any other discussion? Other than we will thank Mrs. Bizzato to accept the position of Assistant Secretary Treasurer of the Town of Pelham Committee of Adjustment effective April 19th. All in favor?
Actually, just before you vote, Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify for the committee that my last day of work will be the 16th of April, but I'm considered to be on vacation until May 28th. So just in case something happens, particularly given the COVID situation right now, we just wanted to put that in place to make sure that just in case something is needed for the Committee of Adjustment, that we would have that backup plan available. There will be, once they fill the deputy clerk's position, then there will be another change to that, to the appointment. But I just wanted the committee to be aware of that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So your last official day is sometime in May, and you may act on, you may help us till your actual retirement date, and that is wonderful. All in favor is the motion as amended. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We need a motion to adjourn. Mrs. Marsh moves that we adjourn, seconded by Mrs. Stan. All in favor of adjournment? Carried. Thank you very much. And Ms. Wilford, can you drop the live streaming? And
yes, through you, Mr. Chair, just give me one moment to turn off the recording and the live stream.